Welcome. In this segment, we'll take a look at the cabinet and the attributes that go along with it. In CabinetSense, there's no difference between a base cabinet and an upper or wall cabinet. You can turn one cabinet into either. However, some of the naming conventions more strictly apply to a base cabinet, but you can use it for other purposes. So for example, on a base cabinet, you'd find a toe kick with 108 millimeter height specified, 75 millimeter inset, and the fact that you want the side panel notched out. On an upper cabinet or a wall cabinet, instead of a toe kick, it would really make more sense to have it as a valance. So you could use it for the same purposes, perhaps having a valance height of 38 or 40 millimeters, no notch, and perhaps an inset of 0 so that it is flush with the front of the cabinet. Okay, let's take a look at some of the general attributes. You can specify the width, the depth, and the height of a cabinet. You can also scale it. But you'll notice you cannot scale it depth-wise. And the reason is, once you put a door on it, the depth doesn't quite scale properly because of the handles, etc. And so I remove that. We're going to come back to the insets and stuff later on, but we'll just concentrate on the basics. You can set the material of the carcass, so that would apply to the entire carcass. And then as you go down into individual components, you can override that. You can specify the thicknesses of all the different components, the back, bottom, shelves, etc. The toe kick we've already gone through. And then you can tell CabinetSense what parts you want visible and how they are constructed in relation to other parts. So for example, we're specifying that we have a back, but we could just as soon say there is no back or there's an other back. And the difference is subtle, but there is a difference. So for example, if I say that there is no back, you'll notice because the sides are overlapping the back right now, all that's going to happen is you're going to see this stretcher move back. Oops. Let's do the right one. Okay, so basically with no back, everything flushes up to the depth of the cabinet. If you say it has an other back, that means the back is going to come from perhaps a different cabinet or a different mechanism, but when you say it has an other back, it means to keep the space open as if it did have a back. So all it does is it makes it exactly the way the cabinet would appear, except the back is invisible. And then it expects you to put a back on. So anytime you see has other, that's the meaning of it. With a bottom, you either have it or you don't. And the ends, you can have the end overlapping the backs, or the back overlapping the ends, or you can have an other side overlapping the back. So again, I'm going to turn this so we can kind of get a better view. And we'll take the right end because that's the one we're looking at. If I say the back overlaps the end, you'll see the change. If I say an other overlaps the back, it leaves room for the back or for the end. So you can see there's actually a space here, and it's the thickness of the end. And what you're saying is you will be responsible for putting the end on it. And the dimension of a width of 600 is this entire dimension. Okay. If you say that there is no end, you'll notice now that the stretchers increase by the depth of the end. So using those parameters really do make a difference, so you have to be careful. If your intent was just to make it invisible to send it to cut list, you may be actually altering the dimensions of other components in the cabinet as well. The alignment feature is for when you are dragging it off the component browser. It's basically saying, in this case, that when you drag a component off, it will snap to whatever you've put that cabinet up against, and it will align it to the back and it will align it to the bottom. So basically, whatever you're aligning it to, it will align based on the back and the bottom. Okay, let's go back up and look at these parameters. The dado depth, if you choose to dado anything, so for example, if I'm going to drill down and I'm looking at this stretcher and I'm going to dado the left end, you can see it's actually increased in size. And the depth is the depth that we saw on the cabinet. So if we're increasing it here, we'll change it, and that'll be for the entire cabinet. Okay, let's put it back to the way it was, and I'm going to work on insetting the back. So in the case where perhaps you've got a 1/4 inch or a 6 mil back and you're going to do nailers top and bottom, you want to be able to tell CabinetSense to inset. So I'm going to inset 3/4 of an inch or 19 millimeters. But you'll notice that the back didn't actually inset. And the reason is, in CabinetSense, to have a back inset, you must have both sides overlapping the back. So as soon as I go down, the end overlapping the back, and you notice now that the back has been inset, and in fact the top and the bottom now protrude over top of the back as well. If you want to dado the back, you would need to drill down to the back piece and change the joinery on the ends that you want dadoed. Switching to X-ray mode and going down into it, you can see that here's the back, and it's into the bottom and it's into the side. Now, if you wanted to put nailers on it, put in the cabinet into Edit, and there is a component called a nailer. Drag it out, and it defaults to the top and sizes to the cabinet. And it also sizes to the depth of the inset. So in this case, we said the inset was 19 millimeters. If I want to move it down to the bottom, and I can drag out another one. If I change my mind later on, and I want to change the depth of my inset to maybe 16 millimeters, you'll notice that the depth of the nailers will change as well. So the nailer still stays flush with the back. The back came out 3 more millimeters and the nailer was reduced. The inset top is strictly for insetting the back nailer. So whether that's useful for you or not, it only insets the back. And that's really all there is to the cabinet.